Most beginner gardeners don't fail because they don't have a green thumb. They fail because they buy 10 plants on day one, put them in the wrong place, use the wrong soil, water them every single day, and follow internet advice that works in someone else's backyard instead of their own. The good news is this: gardening in 2026 has never been easier to start. You do not need a greenhouse. You do not need expensive equipment. And you definitely do not need to turn your entire yard into a mini farm. You just need a small space, a few easy plants, and a simple plan that actually fits your life. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to start your first garden without wasting money, killing your plants, or giving up after 2 weeks. Let's start with the mistake almost everyone makes before they plant their very first seed. Most beginner gardens fail before the first seed is planted. Think about what usually happens. Someone watches a few gardening videos, walks into a garden center, and suddenly they're leaving with tomato plants, lavender, strawberries, peppers, sunflowers, 5 bags of random soil, and absolutely no plan. Gardening feels exciting at the beginning. That's the problem. Beginners often buy plants first and ask questions later. They never check how much sunlight their space gets. They don't know if their balcony receives 3 hours of light or 8. They plant far more than they can manage. They assume all soil is basically the same. And when a plant starts looking weak, they panic and start changing everything at once. Then there are the viral gardening hacks. You've probably seen them. Planting bananas under every tomato plant, watering with strange mixtures from your kitchen, growing giant vegetables from techniques that leave out half the story. The truth is, most successful gardeners do the boring things really well. They understand sunlight, they use good soil, they water consistently, and they start small. That's it. Gardening isn't complicated. It's mostly observation and repetition. Your first goal isn't to create the perfect garden. Your first goal is to keep a few plants alive for an entire season. And once you do that, you'll realize gardening is less about talent and more about building simple habits. Before you buy anything, you need to decide what type of garden makes sense for your space, because not every beginner needs a backyard. Let's talk about your options. If you live in an apartment, container gardening is one of the best places to start. Containers are affordable, flexible, and easy to move around if you realize your plants need more sunlight. Got a balcony? Perfect. A few containers can easily grow basil, lettuce, peppers, mint, and even cherry tomatoes. If you have a small patio, you can create an entire edible garden using pots, grow bags, and vertical planters without ever digging into the ground. For homeowners, raised beds are often the sweet spot. They give you more control over your soil, improve drainage, reduce weeds, and make gardening easier on your back and knees. In-ground gardens can be amazing too, but they come with more variables. You have to work with whatever soil is already there, which can mean clay, sand, poor drainage, or years of neglect. And if you have almost no outdoor space at all, don't overlook indoor herbs. A sunny windowsill with basil, parsley, and green onions is still gardening. Remember, your garden doesn't need to impress your neighbors. It just needs to work for you. In fact, many experienced gardeners will tell you they'd rather manage 4 healthy containers than struggle with 40 unhappy plants. Once you've chosen your garden type, there's one thing that will determine almost everything else: sunlight. Sunlight decides what you can grow, not the picture on the seed packet, not the advice from a friend, and definitely not what someone in another climate is growing online. Before buying a single plant, spend a few days observing your space. How many hours of direct sunlight does it receive? Full sun means around 6 to 8 hours or more each day. Partial sun usually means 4 to 6 hours. Shade means less than 4 hours of direct sunlight. This one step can save beginners an incredible amount of frustration. For example, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and zucchini love full sun. Give them plenty of light and they'll reward you all season. Herbs like basil generally enjoy lots of sun as well. If your space gets partial sun, lettuce, parsley, spinach, and many flowers can still do very well. And if you're working with a shadier area, don't give up. Plants like mint and certain leafy greens are surprisingly forgiving. The mistake many beginners make is trying to force a plant to live somewhere it doesn't want to live. A tomato plant sitting in 3 hours of sunlight isn't lazy. It's simply in the wrong location. Think of sunlight as your garden's budget. You can't spend more than you have. Once you understand your sunlight, choosing plants becomes much easier. And speaking of plants, let's talk about what beginners should actually grow. Here's a simple rule: start with easy plants, not dream plants. Everyone wants the picture-perfect garden: huge pumpkins, exotic fruits, massive watermelons. But your first season isn't about growing impressive plants. It's about building confidence. Some of the best beginner plants include basil, lettuce, radishes, green onions, mint, marigolds, cherry tomatoes, peppers, and zucchini if you have enough room. Why these plants? Because they grow relatively quickly, tolerate beginner mistakes, and give you visible progress. There's something incredibly motivating about walking outside and seeing that your lettuce doubled in size or your basil is ready to harvest. Cherry tomatoes are especially rewarding. You plant one, and before long, you're picking handfuls every week. Marigolds are another fantastic option because they're colorful, forgiving, and attract beneficial pollinators. Now, a quick warning about mint. Mint is wonderfully easy to grow, but keep it in a container. Give it a spot in the ground, and it may decide your entire yard belongs to it. Another beginner mistake is planting 20 different things at once. Instead, choose 3 to 5 plants. That's it. You'll learn more from successfully growing 3 plants than struggling to manage 20. Because gardening isn't a race, it's a skill. And like any skill, it gets easier with practice. Now let's talk about something beginners consistently underestimate: soil. Soil is more important than fertilizer. In fact, if there's one place to spend a little extra money, this is it. Healthy plants begin with healthy soil. Imagine trying to build a house on a weak foundation. That's exactly what happens when you plant into poor soil. For containers, use a quality potting mix, not garden soil. This is important. Garden soil is often too heavy for pots and can lead to poor drainage and compacted roots. Potting mixes are designed to stay light and allow roots to breathe. If you're using raised beds, adding compost is one of the best things you can do. Compost improves soil structure, adds nutrients, and helps retain moisture. Organic matter is your friend. Mulch is another gardening secret that beginners often overlook. A layer of mulch helps keep soil cool, reduce weeds, and hold moisture during hot weather. And here's something many new gardeners don't realize: fertilizer cannot fix bad soil. If your soil drains poorly, lacks organic matter, or becomes hard as concrete, adding fertilizer won't magically solve the problem. Think of fertilizer as a supplement. Soil is the meal. Get the foundation right, and your plants have a much better chance of succeeding. Now let's move on to the area where most beginner plants meet an untimely end: watering. Watering is where most beginners accidentally kill their plants, and usually they do it with good intentions. People see a droopy plant and immediately grab the watering can. But here's the thing: plants can droop when they're thirsty, and they can also droop when they're drowning. That's why overwatering is one of the biggest beginner mistakes. Roots need water, but they also need oxygen. If the soil stays constantly soaked, roots struggle to breathe. A simple habit can prevent most watering mistakes. Stick your finger about an inch into the soil. If it feels dry, water. If it still feels damp, wait. It's called the finger test, and it's surprisingly effective. Make sure containers have drainage holes. Without them, excess water has nowhere to go. Morning is generally the best time to water because plants can absorb moisture before the heat of the day, and when you water, water deeply. A deep watering encourages roots to grow downward, making plants more resilient over time. Avoid giving your plants tiny sips every few hours. You're not serving them espresso. You're helping them build strong roots. As you spend more time gardening, you'll start recognizing what your plants are trying to tell you, and that's one of the most satisfying parts of the entire hobby. Now, let's save you some money, because beginners often think they need an entire shed full of equipment. You don't. Here are the simple tools beginners actually need: a good pair of gloves, a hand trowel, pruning scissors, a watering can or hose, a small shovel, containers or a raised bed, potting mix or compost, mulch, and plant labels. That's it. You don't need smart sensors, expensive gadgets, automated irrigation systems, or every tool hanging on the wall of your local garden center. Start simple. If gardening becomes a lifelong hobby, you can always upgrade later. Some of the most productive gardeners in the world still use basic tools they've owned for years. Remember, plants care about sunlight and soil. They do not care whether your shovel cost $15 or $100. Finally, let's talk about something that scares every beginner: pests. Sooner or later, you'll walk outside and find holes in a leaf. You'll probably assume disaster has arrived. Relax. Pests are normal. Even experienced gardeners deal with them every season. The goal isn't to create a pest-free garden. The goal is to create a healthy garden that can handle a few visitors. Start with prevention. Healthy soil creates stronger plants. Give your plants enough space so air can move between them. Remove dead or diseased leaves when you see them. Every few days, take 30 seconds to look underneath leaves where many pests like to hide, and consider planting companion flowers flowers like marigolds, which can help attract beneficial insects. If you do find pests, don't immediately reach for the strongest chemical spray available. Sometimes removing pests by hand or using a gentle approach is enough. Gardening teaches patience. Problems will happen. Leaves will turn yellow. A plant or two might not survive. And that's okay. Every gardener, no matter how experienced, has made mistakes. The difference is they kept going. That's all you need to start gardening this year. See you in the next video!